Welcome back to Reap the Harvest Live. Matt Tack, Pat Hilton in the zone. A little later today, Matt running around. I had some things to do as well, but we get it in because that's what we do. Matt's talking about buying at wholesale prices and also has been getting a lot of questions about vacation rentals, Airbnb style rentals. Why don't you break down some of the stuff that you've been discussing?
Yeah, I figured I might as well just throw some content out there because there's been a bunch of people like, oh, can I pick your brain? And I'm more than happy, but I might as well just throw the content out, and we can just elaborate on it right here. So vacation rentals, I'm not buying vacation rentals anymore. We divested, we sold all of them off. We don't do any. Would I encourage it? I do. I think it's a long-term play. Yeah, I do. Is hoteling easy? No, it's not. We did the management side, so we scaled up the management piece. If you're looking to do it passively, yeah, it's good. It's a good passive source of income. However, you need to look at it as like, are you buying at a retail price or a wholesale price? And that's really what it comes down to. It's nothing more. Like, what are you going to recoup? What is your net at the end of the day when you buy a vacation rental? Are you going to be using it? And it's going to be a case by case scenario, right? If you have enough in it where all you're looking to do is recapture mortgage, yeah, you could do it, and it's going to be a vacation rental for you that you can pop over to the beach or whatever it might be. That's never really a bad idea. Am I going to pay retail for it? No. Like I choose to not pay a retail for anything. Like if I'm going to buy something personally myself, it's going to be at a wholesale price. So Pat and I were just talking. Is now a good time to buy a house? Well,
right. We rent. And we've rented for a while, especially since we lived in California. Buying a house in California, unless you're like Robert De Niro or something, most people don't just have $500,000 sitting around or $750,000 sitting around to buy a house. Now, obviously, there's different ways to get into a home, but most houses that are awesome out there are $1 million. Here in Texas, those same houses are $330,000.
Exactly. That's a lot like. So you're talking like Frisco, Dallas, that area is a lot like Tampa.
350, 400 is like, I think, doable for us.
Yeah. So let me tell you this, and Pat's a good case in point. A principal dwelling, right, which is your home, like that's going to be your homesteaded property is what I'm referring to. It doesn't matter what you pay for it. If you love it and it's called home, then by all means, it's a home. Make it a home, right? Make sure, number one, you can afford it and it's sustainable, right? It's so you're buying at a price point where it's sustainable, where you can, absolutely, I got 6 months reserve, if not even a little bit more of rental payments that you can take care of. But if you guys want to buy a home, you're never going to get interest rates like this in a long time, let's just say. So money is super cheap. And if it's going to be your home and you guys want to buy a home, then I would say go ahead and find a home. I'm not saying don't buy now because you're looking for that, that perfect or that wholesale, a house or that option. If it's going to be a home, where you're going to call it a home and you feel like you have longevity and you're going to be raising your family in that home, then by all means, because you're buying, look at it at this, you're buying at maybe a sub 2%, a sub 3% interest rate, right? That's big because when interest rates start going up a little bit, then you're going to fall in a scenario, but there are other options, right? Pat and his wife looking for a home, maybe, right? An option potentially is to look at, if you're looking at trying to get something at a little bit of a discounted price, looking at auctions, pre-foreclosures that you might be able to, pay 70, 80 cents on the dollar rather than 100% on the dollar. So you can build in 20% equity, then maybe put your own personal touches on it and build in 30-40% equity into the position. So that's always an option. If and that's also like a lot of homes out there pre-foreclosure and auction are still they're financeable. So you would just need to like figure out how you're going to work with the bank and try to get that position so that you can put money down on the house. Maybe it's an EMD deposit, and then you can try to position it or build a relationship with a bank to come in and get long-term financing on it. So there's options for you to actually find a home. It takes probably a little bit more diligence on somebody else's part to actually go find a principal dwelling that you're going to live in. I call principal dwelling, but like that's a homesteaded property that you're going to be going, you're going to be finding. So there's auction sites, pre-foreclosures, just keeping an eye on those things that if you think you like it, then you got to hop on it. But honestly, people are buying houses like crazy. Like the housing market's wild, right? Right
Yeah,
now,
the supply and demand I've been following. And we did talk about that a few weeks ago on another episode that, the demand is hotter right now than the supply actually is.
Yeah, because I mean, you still have unemployment's still relatively low because of the infusion of cash into the Federal Reserve. So you have the infusion of cash, and you have the infusion of cash into basically just the entire economy through the Stimulus Act. So now you have people like looking to spend, right? I got a little bit of money. Our apartments, honestly, there's a lot of applications coming through because people get a little bit of money. They can come in and they can start paying rent again. So we're getting a lot of traction in our applications. We are actually, through, I think we have a couple turnovers at one of our assets in particular that I had a meeting on with earlier this week. But I think we're going through a reposition on one. So we're about 85-90% occupancy on a heavy reposition. And at a couple other ones, we're at 100% occupancy. So, those are just the things that kind of make that up. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for a home, I wouldn't look at it as, hey, maybe the time isn't right. No, you kind of make like when's the best time to have a kid? Never, right? You just kind of like fall into it. You do it, right? And you just kind of work through whatever. There is probably a good and a bad time to like buy a house at the end of the day. But if that's something you're looking to do, just make sure that, it's the house you love. Kind of plan, maybe even an exit strategy. I always like try to build that like 5 and 10 year plan. We decided that we're going to stay in our house a little bit longer. We lived in a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and then there was like an accessory structure. We call it an in-law suite. I've now converted into my office. But instead of selling our house, we decided to do just a big addition on the backside. So right now we're going through like the permitting and everything to do like essentially double the size of our house that we currently have right now. So that's going to be, a lot of work, but there's going to be upside equity to that. But for me in particular, we're going back to kind of like if it's going to be your home and your principal and it's not an investment property, you don't always need to get the best deal in the world, right? Find your spot, your location, that you want to be in, that you feel like your kids can grow up in this house and you really love the house. Be economical, realistic with kind of where the position and of like, your current overall net worth, where you're projecting yourself to be, and then your cash reserve, cash supply, so that you have at least 6 months reserve in your account. I think that's pretty huge, right? We used to not have that. Then, that was the one thing that I actively worked on, get a 6 month like big reserve built up. And now business has done well. So now I'm not like, that's not even really a worry, but at the same time, it's like, you want to make sure that you have that reserve built up within your mortgage, that you don't need to worry about it. The world goes to hell in the handbasket. COVID hits, right? Is that you have that 6 month buffer to really kind of like feel things out and figure things out and being able to reflect on stuff and how am I going to be able to be nimble? But I already got my mortgage taken care of, right? I got my 6 month reserve bucket. I also recommend putting a little HOA bucket aside for yourself for reserve and maintenance on a house. So you have like accounts, you have your mortgage account that you've established, but like when you buy a house, this is why I like renting, is because renting, you never take on you never take on the improvements or the deferred maintenance on anything. So that's not up to you. That's up to the owner. So like I like those things. You definitely want to make sure you get a good landlord, but renting's not always bad. So I don't frown upon renting. But if you're trying to like build a home, don't think of it as like, oh, I'm trying to build equity into this, because unless you're doing a little bit of value add to it, it's not necessarily that, right? I spend a lot more on my house because it's my house, because I call it home, than I would when it's just like I'm renting something. Because at the end of the day, if I'm renting something, it's not necessarily like my home. Um, I do call it the home of other people. So anytime I have a resident that lives at our apartment complexes, I call them a resident and I call it a home, because that is their home. So that's just my thinking, but not every landlord thinks that way. Um, but what you really want to think of is when you buy, don't think of it as like, oh, I'm going to make a ton of money off of this. Never buy something that where you like when it's your principal dwelling, like when it's your homesteaded property. Never think of it as like, oh, I'm buying this because like there's going to be like an insane amount of upside. Like you're making it your home, you're establishing, you're growing, you're building memories in that home. Buy it for the purposes of really that, but buy it within your economic scale that you're like, okay, I can preserve this over a period of time. Does that make sense, man?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It
Yeah.
makes perfect sense.
Cool.
Yeah,
So,
because
but
I think sometimes we see, and even as when I talk to people that are real estate professionals, because obviously you and I have gotten to know quite a few of them in our network. And it's just like a lot of people have said that. And I think that's good advice is, buy it because you like it. If you're always
yeah,
trying to make money, unless you're buying it to flip it or you're buying it to wholesale it, which are
completely
almost
different
different.
story.
They're different. Yeah, they're different types of investment. An investment for living in it and growing your family or whatever you're trying to do is different than buying an investment property and cash flowing it or wholesaling it or whatever. So I think that's great advice, man.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just super important to keep that in mind, because the economics have to be there as well. So don't forget about the economics. Like you want to make sure you're buying in the price point that where you can establish yourself, because there's a lot of people right now buying and they're overstretching themselves, right? So if I'm
Mm.
over, because banks know how to do this, mortgage brokers know how to do this. They
Well, and
know
we've
how to be
seen
like,
this in the
oh,
past too.
I can take away this, I can take away this, I can take away this, I can show you this much income for you. When you know in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, I got that credit card balance, and I got this, and I got that, and I got this, and I got that, and I got to pay this guy. And then what your actual monthly income isn't that. So it's not sustainable, but you're like, I really want this house. Just make sure you set things very economically for yourself for future success. You know what I mean? Because you never want to get in a position where like, oh, I got to do this, I got to refinance, I got to do this, and then I'm back into the hole again. So just make sure you have the economics established. Okay, I can afford a house between maybe $175,000 and $250,000, right? And if that's my low end and that's my high end, so that's my max allowable. And then identify what those houses look like in that market. Don't look at anything outside of the parameters that you set for yourself.
Right.
And then that's when you go in and you can build something to like the liking of yourself over time. So, you can put the new kitchens in. Realize that like you can be a visionary with your house and put like new things in, and do new things to it that over time. It doesn't have to be like, a lot of times with me, the way I think, I'm like, I want to do everything now. I want to do it.
Yeah, I'm
The
the same
core,
way.
how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. That's what I tell my team all the time. Let's just eat the elephant, but we're going to take one bite at a time, and we're eventually going to get through this. So it's doing that. Now, segueing, right? Investment properties and Airbnb. I got a lot of people reaching out to me talking about like, hey, Airbnb, this, that, VRBO, HomeAway, whatever it might be. Yes, that's how I established like how I understood real estate, and now much at a much different level. Would I encourage, if I'm going to say like, would I encourage people to go buy investment properties to get an Airbnb right now? Absolutely not. Like I'm not encouraging like anyone to go into the game right now and like to try to scale a business model that way. I don't think vacation rentals right now. We're in a COVID period. You see this with like the cruise lines, hoteling. They're getting beat up right now, really hard. They're getting beat up, and so would I encourage anyone to go into the Airbnb? No. So I've had people to reach out, hey, what would you do? Can I pick your brain? I'm not encouraging people to do it. So you can pick my brain, but like I have a limited amount of time. I can definitely help people if you start coming in the community. So like the Reap the Harvest community is going to be a pretty big value there as far as teaching, instructing, and walking people through the good investment types. But Airbnb wouldn't be one of them for right now. I don't think that's longevity. I don't think you have that in longevity unless it's something like, hey, I'm going to kind of hybrid this out. I want an investment property. I want to only cover my mortgage. I'm not looking to make a ton of money, but I want to utilize it for my family on the weekend. Again, that's creating memories with your family, establishing things. Those things are really, really good. Now, vice versa, like I also, and if you can buy something at a steep discount and that's what you want to use it for, and you know your numbers and you can cash flow off of it, and you were like, I think just Airbnb is a better option and I want to do it, build in the numbers with you not managing it. And that's what, like, have a management company that knows Airbnbs, manage the turnovers, manage everything. So if you're buying something at a steep enough discount and you can create enough spread with a management company in place, hey, that the world is your oyster. You do it. Like I wouldn't necessarily encourage it. I like the
No, but
long-term.
that model, that way of breaking it down does make sense.
Yeah. You just need to get the spread. The spread is where it needs to be at.
Right. And then offload the rest of the stress.
Yes. You want it to be it's all going to be like it's passive, right? You shouldn't be the ones responding to the messages. You shouldn't be like, I had a team, like we did that, right? And at the end of the day, it's pretty anxiety driven. The hoteling, like there's always something. There's going to be parties here. Like my buddy, he messaged me something the other day. He's like, he's had like, it's been insane in Tampa where people are coming in for parties and it's been out of control. I exited, so we sold all of ours off by earlier this fall, but spring. But literally it's just like parties. It's all this stuff that goes on and your liabilities just go so high where if you have a long-term resident in place, then you can treat it like a home. And I would still recommend the same type of approach in your underwriting process where, hey, I'm looking at this and I'm going to look at it. I got to buy it at wholesale or below wholesale, put a little bit of value into it, get a quality resident to come in that I think is going to be there for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. And I can consistently make that income month over month. I like, anywhere from 10 to 12 caps. If you're looking at a short-term rental, it better be north of a 16, 17 cap in order for it to make sense, right? So you better be getting good returns on your money for that type of liability and that type of exposure. I know there's insurance covers you, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and like tell people, the Brian Pages of the world. I'm sure Brian Page is a good guy, but and I used his model too to an extent where I arbitraged, but it's not a good model. It's not a good model at all. I'm not going to sit here and say Brian Page is basically, he's making his money off of his click funnel is what he is. He's not making money like you think he is with his videos and with his arbitraging his Airbnbs. If anything, he's getting slammed right now, and probably the landlords are kicking him out because he's renting out all these units. And they're probably taking a security deposit too. So there's a lot of liability. There's a lot of liability that comes in play. So I would not encourage anyone to get in the game. The people that are in the game, you just got to make sure that you're creating enough spread. If you're not creating enough spread, I would go back to the underwriting and say, hey, look, where is it that I can make enough spread in the long term? Can I make between that 8 and 10 cap? If I can make between that 8 and 10 cap, I'm probably in a good position. You know, we look for C to B areas is what we look for. I mean, A through C. We'll take down C. So we have a couple assets in C areas that are good though. They're steady. They're economical rent basis. So we feel like there's some decent amount of value in the C class. We highly like the B class, and then working with some of the A's. But overall, going back, just trying to wrap everything up. Number one, if you're buying a home, buy a home. Just make sure it's within your economics, and that you can build out a reserve, and that you're going to make memories in it. It's your home. It's a principal. It's your homesteaded property. Just make it a home. So I would encourage, Pat, you to look. I don't discourage people. Interest rates are low. Why not? It's an incredible time to buy a house. And if you can get a good deal on a house in this type of market, more power to you. That's awesome. But if it's a home, don't just think, oh, it's a bad market because markets are high. Hey, you still can find something, I guarantee. Just make sure it's within your economics. Two, the short-term rental model. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it right now. I don't think it's a good upside. I would hold off unless you can get really some steep discounts on houses. I still wouldn't turn them right now into vacation rentals. What I would do is I would buy it. I would hold it for a long-term resident to come in. And then if eventually I wanted to convert it to a short-term rental, when times permit, by all means, do it. But the third thing, just make sure you're buying wholesale. We talk about this. Buying wholesale or below wholesale is always the best approach to everything. You just don't want to be caught in a position. We operate off of anywhere from 40 to 60 cents on the dollar. So we know that if there's a market correction, or we typically aren't taking down anything that we have to put a lot of improvement into, a lot of value adds, a lot of paint, cosmetic, and then quick turn. But if you're buying anything for investment purposes, wholesale or below wholesale, how do you find those? Well, that's another time. We'll talk about that. But as far as putting out contact today, just make sure that you're putting in offers and at price points that are, wholesale or below wholesale. And I promise you, then you'll make those returns incrementally over time. So that's what, that's the main agenda that I had for today, just to kind of clear out some of the questions on Airbnb that I was getting on short-term rentals. I mean, really, at the end of the day, what I would do is I would still lock down. If you find a deal, lock down the deal, make it a deal, make it happen. But put a longer term resident in play right now until we can kind of get through these times where we see the activity come up. Because I know occupancy is pretty low right now, right? For the past 5 years that I've been operating in the game, we had probably between about 80. Our low bare minimum was 70, but it would be 75 and 100% occupancy all the time. And that 75 was very, very rare. So it was typically north of 90 that we would get in occupancy. And, it was fun. We did well. But I'm just saying that I saw a ceiling happen about a year and a half ago. I didn't see COVID, but I saw the market with Airbnbs really, really getting oversaturated. And now everyone's taking a real pounding, right? By the grace of God, I did not. So very grateful for that. But that's pretty much it, man. That's what I got for today.
That's boom tight. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you got any questions, shoot us a message and hop in the community. We're going to be doing calls every week, helping you out, winning at life. And we'll see everybody next time. Thanks, Matt.
Deuces. Peace.